everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. It's a joy to be with you. And I want you to meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. That's right. Oops. Is that my phone buzzing? But it's not ringing. It's on silent. At least that's what it's supposed to be. I'm on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, everybody. Please like and share. You've been with me for about 5 or 6 hours tonight. It's been a long time. And I'm on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That's the only page where I can accept friends, everybody. Facebook imposes limits on your what they call the landing page. And they let me know, T.O. Hardiman, that about 1,000 people per month are being pushed off of my landing page.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've had so many of you who wanted to be my friend. I'm so honored by that. So I had to open up a fan page, everybody. Santita Jackson and Friends. That's where I said, well, we're going to come up with a name. Let's be honest about it. You all are my friends. So please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. Become my friend there. And please share the show. For the last couple of weeks, we've had a few shows that have had more than 1.5 million views. And I want to thank you for that. I don't know how that happened, but somehow or another, we're beginning to track again. I don't know, because it stopped for a while. We got really suppressed, but I'm really glad and so grateful that you've pulled us into your hearts, this whole crew. And of course, I'm on X at Santita J and the Santita Jackson Show. But now, everybody, I'm so proud of myself. I got myself on Blue Sky early this morning, and it's at Santita Jackson, whatever else it is. BSKY, I think that's social. But it's Santita Jackson. Look me up there. And this iteration of me, because, I got a lot of them, this iteration of me is in the picture because I actually took a selfie. I was trying to figure it out. But meet me on Blue Sky as well. But let's talk about this campaign. Wow. This presidential campaign, for a lot of reasons, has got a lot of people really, we're still talking about it, Deborah Douglas, of course, and of course, I love your book. Really, the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. This is a book that takes you through the key places in our history along the Civil Rights Trail. Absolutely. And it's been a fantastic book, and I'm going to have you come on and talk about that, because the Bible tells you to remove not the ancient landmarks which our fathers and mothers have set. And this book really you really diligently did the research. You're a brilliant journalist. Of course, you're on the faculty at Medill School of Journalism, the top school of journalism in the world. And so I have high expectations of you, Deborah. But I want to thank you for your book. T.O. Hardiman, Violence Interrupters, a former candidate for governor for the state of Illinois. He got almost 30% of the vote, everybody. And he has his own show on WVON, the iconic Black Talk radio station. There are only about 5 or 6 across the country right now. And this is the voice of the Negro and the voice of the nation, WVON, every Sunday morning before Keep Hope Alive, everybody. That's right. From 6 to 7 Central Standard Time. I'm so glad that he's here. And one day he's going to smile. But you've got your book. You have your book with you?
I'm smiling, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I can't believe it. What's the name of your book? Pull it up.
Yeah. I'll pull it up in a few, Santita. I don't have it right in front of me right now, okay?
Oh, but don't leave. Don't leave and go away and get it. What's the name of your book?
Interrupting Gun Violence, the Public Health Approach. You can find it at Amazon. Yes, indeed. Or you can go to my website, violenceinterrupters.org, violenceinterrupters.org, and support me on my book. It's a tax write-off, actually. It's for my foundation. So if you purchase the book, you can just claim it on your tax.
That's good. That's important. But we want you to put these books under your Christmas tree. Jim Marakis of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. I'm going to start things off with you, because as we're looking at the election, Deborah Douglas and T.O. Hardiman, I said, Jim, you can help me with this, and you can too, Deborah, on the ethics of this, but also in the practice of this, T.O., because I know I own my own show. When WCPT let me go almost a year ago, I said, well, I'd been fired, and someone corrected me. They said, no, you were not hired by them. You own your show. They just don't carry it anymore. I said, Okay, that's important for me to know. But it's important to this is germane to this discussion because now the question is, when you're an independent entity in the media who has to pay bills, because none of this is free. I mean, fortunately, I have a couple of other jobs that enables me, that carries this show as I seek to attract sponsors. The time that you spend on the radio costs. But there's something called disclosure. Because when you do accept monies from a campaign or from any entity, you disclose that these are my sponsors. That's why when you see people walk the red carpet, you see all of these signs. None of these are sponsors, by the way. It's me. But you see all of these bugs because the sponsors say, okay, well, in exchange I want to be associated with you, so I'm going to be associated with you. We're seeing now that there has been a lot of discussion about monies paid to Oprah Winfrey's production company, monies paid to Reverend Al Sharpton's not for profit. Um, and then she did an interview on MSNBC, Kamala Harris did, and then Roland Martin, and then this entity and the other. But particularly, people are looking at the media entities. And I'm not here to beat up anyone. I'm here really to get some clarity because Elon Musk said something that, you don't have to like him, but a broken clock is right twice a day. He said, you're the new media. And American people, we are. I mean, there was a young woman who was walking down the street, not even a young woman, a teenager, 17 years of age. She was with her 9-year-old cousin, and she saw something that she felt was not going to go well. And it was George Floyd. Turns out she pulled out her phone, hit live on her Facebook app, and the whole world turned on this 17-year-old whose life experiences, Deborah Douglas, whose lived experiences, Jim Narekas and Tio Hardiman. She told her cousin, go into the store and do not come out until I get you. She knew something bad was going to happen. At the tender age of 17, she was a child. But that's the new media now. That's Mr. Castillo. I don't want to mispronounce his name. His girlfriend sees the encounter with the police while her daughter's in the back, and the police shoots him dead. She streams it on Facebook. I mean, these things have changed, but what has not changed is the need to disclose, right? So how do we handle this? I mean, how is MSNBC going to handle this as they wrestle with, okay, how do we, and they were so quite forward to their support of Kamala Harris, but they're still a news organization, right? So how do you handle this? How do you handle this now that you see that one of your top personalities has gotten, a contribution from the campaign and then, a celebrated interview? I mean, how do you handle a Roland Martin who's not employed by a corporate entity? I mean, what are the rules here? I guess that's what I'm trying to find out, because we're always in a campaign season, or we're always in something that could be compromising to our integrity. The reason I feel so honored to be with you every day, and let me just say this, because so many of you have come to me and it can make me cry, because it's trust. Even when you disagree with me, you've told me that you feel that I have some integrity. And I can't be paid for that. And I would never knowingly betray that. I would never do that. And so I could do this and not be paid as I am not paid, because I think that it is such a profound honor to be able to share, to have this platform, and then to be able for you to meet a Deborah Douglas and get to know her and her brilliance, and Jim Derekas and his brilliance and his tremendous body of work, and Tio Hardiman and his tremendous body of work and his brilliance in the community. It's just an honor, and I just want you to know that. And so this is not to cast aspersion upon anyone that we've mentioned, because when you listen to radio and look at television, political political spots are played all over the place. That's why people have to raise so much money, because you do need to be on radio and TV. You do need to be in print. People need to see you. But how do we handle this? So, Jim Narakis, let me start with you, because now there's a lot that's being made about these interviews, and now because MSNBC was slow to discuss this, because they said we didn't know that that Reverend Sharpton's not for profit had received a contribution. And Newsweek had a story, Deborah Douglas and Theo Hardiman, and I'm sure you've seen it, where they listed out the Black entities that received monies from the Harris campaign. But the Black vote was the backbone of her campaign, and she raised $1 billion plus, and she assigned $14 million to the Black press. That's really not nearly enough, everybody. Let me just keep it 100. Okay, so there's that. But even when you do that, there's a way that you have to do it, so that you can preserve your integrity. And also, if I invite a candidate on my show, I have an obligation to invite their opposition on, even if they turn me down. That's the way this is supposed to work. That's important, everybody. That's important, and it's fair.
I don't know that I believe that, Santita.
Well, you know what? Let me tell you something. Just some of this for me. No, those are the rules. And when you
Those are not the rules.
Well, I'm telling you, as they were explained,
for a very long time.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not practiced in some way in some spaces. But for me, I've lived in the hot seat, Deborah. So there's some things I cannot afford to do.
I absolutely understand that is your organizational standard and a personal standard, and it is why we come to you for the integrity that you imbue in everything that you do. But the idea that we have to give space to both sides hasn't been something that's been true for a while.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways to our detriment, in many other ways not so much, because when it comes to drawing a line in the sand, say between an individual or an organization that does not prioritize life or humanity, we're not duty bound to invite those voices into a space and to give them the air to talk about things, to spread ideas that are not life enhancing.
Well, I'm going to do it because I'm honor bound beyond duty. Because the thing is, I will give you the platform so that people can see who you are. But that's what I'm going to do. And I learned journalism from a lot of old folks, and I've kind of stayed with them on that which is fair.
Yeah.
Because that was when I talked to you earlier this year about then former President Trump's appearance before the NABJ. I said, to me, when you invite someone into your house, there's a way that you handle them.
And I was on the side of the fence where I think that he needed to be invited into our house.
Well, see, and I felt that he needed to be invited, and he jumped at the opportunity to speak to people. And we had to beg Kamala. Now, I've known her 40 plus years, and I think she's a wonderful person. That has nothing to do with any of this. I was the maid of honor in the Obama's wedding. That ain't got nothing to do with my disagreements with them on their politics.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm talking about how you handle this platform.
Right. And
one of the things that I've learned from Reverend, who's been in the game and who's remained relevant for 60 years, which is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
He said, one thing you do with power is try not to use it. Because if you use it as a human being, you could abuse it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you abuse it, you will lose it. And most people who lose it don't know that they've lost it. So you got to be careful when you've been given this much power, the microphone. Sometimes you have to take the hits, because ultimately, if it's your mic, you get the last word.
I get it. I do want to speak to disclosure. I know you gave the floor to Jim, but I want to.
No, I did, but I do. Well, you go on to say what you need to say, but I do want to pivot to Jim, because I do want to, because as a media watchdog, they step back and this is what they do. they look at this, and I wanted to know from him what he thought. But you, please.
It's been in it, and not only as a reporter, working as a grunt, just doing the day-to-day, beating the streets, but I'm a 2-time journalism outlet founder, and so the missing piece here is, again, to your point about operating in integrity, is the transparency component of this. And so any organization can develop a set of guidelines for how they're going to treat sponsorship dollars, advertising dollars, any kind of money that flows through the organization. It's just a good idea as part of having high standards to have a set policy for that that's posted and that's transparent, so that everyone who comes to engage with your outlet, be it online or any place else, can understand the parameters by which you're operating. But it's also true what you said before about the small pot of dollars invested in Black media throughout the last campaign. It's true every campaign, every general election. There's not enough money pumped into Black media outlets to really fully engage with the community. And so these outlets, these organizations require resources, and resources includes money to actually function. So the fact that there was a money exchange is not wrong. If there's any point of contention, and I'm not saying that there is, but if there's any point of contention, is the transparency that comes along with this exchange of cash, and being clear about how you're functioning in a particular scenario when you're engaging and exchanging dialogue and information and in facts.
Okay, and Jim, what is your view? Because what fairness and accuracy reporting does is you catch people in things like this, and talk to me. What do you make of this?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned Elon Musk, because I think it's important to think of the context here. We have a situation where the world's richest human being took a small portion of his fortune, $40 billion, and used that to buy Twitter, the primary social media platform for exchanging information. It's not the leading social media platform overall, but in terms of holding a discussion about current events, Twitter is unparalleled. He bought it. He changed the rules. He brought back the white supremacist accounts that have been banned. Brought back Trump. Banned a number of left-wing accounts at the behest of the right. Changed the algorithm so that people who were part of Twitter are getting barraged with right-wing propaganda, particularly his own propagandizing for the right, for his white supremacist views. I believe that's that kind of media power has the ability to sway elections. That was $40 billion well spent. Now his candidate has been elected. He's been named to a special quasi-governmental body that is going to have sweeping powers to propose the elimination of programs. Individual government officials are now serving at the pleasure of Elon Musk. He's a part of his vast fortune is dependent on government largesse, which is protected because now he's the best buddy of the president, the incoming president. That is the world we live in, where you have billionaires like Elon Musk, who also spent, by the way, I think $15 million on get out the vote efforts of the kind that the Harris campaign was paying Al Sharpton for, and other Black and Latino organizations. He's is able to match that spending with basically the change that he finds in his couch. Should Al Sharpton have disclosed that he was receiving get out the vote money from the person he was interviewing? I believe yes. But in the context of a world where information has been so commodified and so weaponized, I worry about putting a microscope on the ethics of the Black activist who has one of the few platforms in corporate media to make to bring the African American community perspective to a nationwide audience.
But Jim, hold on, because
Sure.
at that point, Newsweek magazine was the corporate outlet. I'm not going to call them mainstream. I thank you for helping me with that. Was the corporate outlet that listed the Black organizations, the top, the Black organizations that got, I guess, in excess of $100,000 from the Harris campaign. And I thought that was interesting. But these were organizations and not commentators and personalities on television and radio.
Yeah. Al Sharpton has an odd, he is a political activist. He's always been a political activist. He was hired by MSNBC knowing that he's a political activist. There's no way that he can do a job as a host of a TV show while he's also running an activist group without creating some kinds of conflicts of interest, where the people that he is dealing with as newsmakers are also people that his group is either organizing with or against, because that's what political activists do. I am hesitant to say that there should be a wall against activists participating in media when you have like such a gigantic wall of money on the other side that is bound by no rules, by no there's no ethical principle on the right other than we have the money to buy a platform, as many platforms as we need for our agenda. And I think that we need to be looking at ways to organize ourselves against that agenda, and rather than being worried that we are stepping on some kind of imagined pristine journalistic environment that had previously been uncontaminated by people with political agendas or money as an instrument of getting your message out.
I just want to co-sign Jim by saying that things are not normal. So yeah, I think we can all stipulate that things are not normal. And we never really had this pristine landscape. We just lacked the language to use to describe what was wrong with it, with this particular landscape.
Well, the hard part is being settled.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, bottom line,
yeah,
it's never been fair. I started going, Deborah, too, and I'm going to bring you in, Theo Hardiman.
Right.
My father started taking me to editorial board meetings with him when I was about 5.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was, he was a babysitter. My parents were young parents and they had no money, but we always had a lot of wonderful people coming out of the church who would help to take care of us. But also, as children, our parents wanted us to see things. And maybe because I was reading already by 5, and though, there's certain precociousness that comes with, suddenly you have security. People point guns at your father. That was the first time I saw that. I was 5, and so you kind of, and I guess I had a capacity. My father said, I knew that there were some things that you understood, even as a little girl, as while we protected your childhood as best we could. Yeah, I wanted you to see some things and not be intimidated by them, right? And so as I got a little older, he would say, now this person is going to come after daddy.
Mhm.
And watch. And we leave the meeting, editorial board meeting, or some kind of board meeting, and it would have happened. And so I'm saying power I'm getting. And the playing field has never been even. But I guess I'm just pivoting to what my mother has told me, Deborah and Jim and Tio. I don't care what they're doing down the street. I want you to be in the right. I don't want you to be tainted by this ugliness that we see. I don't want you to don't know. If they're going to do wrong, you don't need to do wrong too. If that is how the game is played, then you need to get out. And because I think that particularly as people who have lived, who have lived and who've had to function under the boot of oppression, we have another responsibility not to behave as the oppressor. At some point, we got to call this dark money and all of this, call it out. All I'm asking for is transparency. Because everybody's got their point of view, but you got to say, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
But Tio, you've been a candidate. You are a radio host. I mean, you're an activist. So you've been interviewed. You've been the interviewer.
Yes.
And so, and now you own your own show. So you tell me, what do you see? And you've also been a candidate who's had to do media buys.
Yeah.
And you needed to. So
well,
you bring yet another perspective. That's why I wanted to kind of get this constellation that I have here with me tonight, Deborah. I feel so honored to have you, faculty member at the Medill School of Journalism. I mean, there's no fine school that exists in that space. Jim Narekas of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, Extra magazine. I have been a supporter of you for, my goodness, 40 years just about.
Okay.
Since I was a kid, really. Because I knew that I would be able to see a legitimate critique of media and their unfairness.
Santita,
Tio, your thoughts?
when it comes down to, there's a former super soul singer, Bobby Womack. He had a song titled "The Facts of Life." He said when he wanted water, he asked for water, right? Because tomorrow he might be gone somewhere, right? The moral of the story, James Brown said, "You can have the Watergate, give me some bucks, I'll be straight." Let me explain. It's all about transparency, like you said. But the reality is that when a person takes money and they decide not to kind of like, reveal that they've taken some money, it seems to be disingenuous in regards to their support of that person. Would they have done an interview without the money? I mean, those are questions out there, right? Now, if Mrs. Harris had been a Caucasian candidate and Al Sharpton or Oprah Winfrey got paid, they would be considered sellouts, right? But by being African-American, they're not considered that way. So it's okay for them to take the money. I'm good with that. Just be honest with everybody about it. That's where the main problem comes in at, because it's going to happen time and time again. Matter of fact, Donald Trump's son once said that during the first election of Donald Trump, he said a lot of African-American people have come to him. They're hustlers. And I don't want our people to be put in this hustler category. Oprah Winfrey, I'm not here to judge her purse or pocketbook. I don't know if she really, let's say, just put it out there, needed the money, but she took the money, right, for a production company. Al Sharpton is known for, I'm crazy about Al Sharpton. I think he's one of the greatest speakers of all time, here today. I mean, I like the way he talks. I've been around him. I had a chance to participate on panels with Al Sharpton, but there was a story out there from Comcast when Byron Allen was suing Comcast for $1 billion, and allegedly now Al Sharpton took a couple of $1 million to silence his voice, and Byron lost the lawsuit against Comcast for discrimination. You can look this up. This is in the news. It's been confirmed, but we don't know. See, the money went to his organization, the Action Network, right? the National Action Network. But the problem is this. It's about being transparent. When I ran for governor the second time, I'm not going to reveal the source or whatever, but it was brought to my attention to take a payoff. I did not know how to take the payoff. I'm just being transparent with everybody. Mm-hmm. Plus, I was running for the people, so I'm not going to take a payoff anyway. But I didn't know how to even take it because I never wanted to be in a conversation that appeared to be unethical, right? How do I take a payoff, right? And so looking at the numbers, Santita, I would love for us to do this. If we can kind of pull some of the records when it comes down to how much money was spent in other media outlets compared to Black outlets. So you say 14 million, and the African-American media outlets are always seen as an afterthought. It happens all the time. This entire election was the African-American vote is being taken for granted. Biden said it himself, you're not Black if you don't vote for me. How did he get that type of thinking? So we know all the women, close to 100% of African-American women voted for Mrs. Harris, without a doubt. 80% of African-American men voted for her. So they're taking the Black vote for granted. My thing is triple amounts of money should have been spent with Black media if they're going to spend all that money everywhere else. So I have no problem. I want to make it clear with people taking money. Just be honest about it. That's why I mentioned Bobby Womack. I'm a straightforward person. I'm one of them guys. I'm straight up, look, it is what it is. Whatever it is, let's put it out there. That's why I work in the field of conflict mediation. I work in the field of communication because it's about being the only way you're going to resolve a conflict. The truth needs to be put on the table, right? And I don't take sides. Nobody's taking sides. Just be straight up because there's a lot of connotations on a lot of these individuals out there, especially Al Sharpton. I'm not saying they're true or false, but there's these perceptions of individuals. Roland Martin, but one thing about Roland, he owns his media. He owns his media, right? So in that regards, I think that's my take on it, Santita.
Well, I think I have a funny Reverend Jesse Jackson story. I've got millions of them. Grew up with him, kind of know him. But I was a little girl. There was a furniture store in Chicago, and we were still living in our apartment, so I must have been about 5 or so. And in fact, in part of my living room, I have the first set of furniture Jim Narekas and Deborah Douglas and Theo Hardeman that my parents bought on their own. Because the furniture they had at the University of Chicago, I noticed. I said, "Mom, we didn't have doors, did we?" She said, "Yeah, we had doors, but we took them down." And my father said, "And your mother made a sofa in the living room. The other door was our dining room table. We had brick. and another door was the coffee table in the living room." And he said, "Your mother was just very creative." And then she put up beads as the doors. This is the 60s. But, hey, they didn't have any money, right? And so as they're struggling and growing, and as my father's ministry grew, this furniture store, who didn't employ Black people, and they were beginning to feel the heat, and so they decided they were going to start looking for some Black folks to employ in Chicago. Imagine. And they said, "Well, Reverend," they called them and they said, "We want to give you, and we understand you and your wife just got a nice little apartment, and we want to give you a bedroom set." My father said, "Thank you. That's nice." He said, "But don't think I won't get up out of this bed and boycott you in the morning." It's just, you got to tell people what's up. You know what I mean? Now they end up getting a line of credit from the store, and they even did it that way because they said, "No, we're good, and we'll just pay you every month for what we get, and we're all right." And particularly when you're under the boot of oppression, Deborah, you have to be even more careful. And because now Vice President Harris is taking so many hits about having $20 million of overages. And I don't know what that's about. Because so much about the campaign was just so crazy. The money that she got, she raised a lot, but she also had to take a lot. And when she took the money, she had to take Joe Biden's people, and only heaven. And that is, that worked out the way it worked out for her. Mm-hmm. She couldn't just have her own gang. That's how that goes. Mm-hmm. But just how do you, and I want to take this around the panel. How do you think this should be handled? Because I will also say this, part of Reverend Jackson's advocacy when he was running for president, and Jim, you probably know this, was when he started running, we got a chance to understand, Deborah, the business of politics. First of all, you understood, found out that the Democratic and Republican parties were not government entities, but private corporations. And as private corporations, they did business. Someone's paid to make the buttons and the t-shirts and the hats and the little tchotchkes. And black folks were the backbone of the party and were getting none of those contracts. We didn't even know to get them. So when he was running for president, he was also running for that too. Because he was pushing the Democratic Party and ended up pushing and nudging the Republican Party. You got to do business with black businesses. You've got to do black media buys, because they didn't do that until Reverend ran. He said, no, not a little bit. I mean, a lot of bit.
Exactly.
Now that ended with Obama, because he stopped pushing for it.
Yep.
Wow.
And we've been suffering ever since. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not here to cast aspersion upon anyone, Deborah, or Jim Narakis Affair, or Tio Hardiman. I'm just trying to find out how do we do this now? Because to me, like you said, yeah, people have been doing what they've been doing for a long time. I got it. But for me, I guess I just want to keep things above reproach. I'm not perfect by any means. I just, Jim, I'm like, I just think, say, this is what I'm doing. And then then you can make your own judgments.
Yeah. I want to make it clear that I'm not looking for, a mirror image of the right-wing media machine. I'm not hoping that hypothetical progressive billionaires show up to buy a social media platform for us. Mm-hmm. I don't think that billionaires are going to ever be our friends. I think that you need to counter the right-wing billionaire-funded agenda. You need grassroots people power. And you need media that speaks for that people power. And I think that you won't get people to support media unless that media is clearly on the people's side. I don't think that a both sides media is going to get the grassroots support that it needs. That a media that is speaking for the public consistently and on the side of the people consistently, that is the only kind of media that is able to get public support and is worthy of public support. And until we have, Al Sharpton's show is on MSNBC. MSNBC is owned by Comcast, a huge telecommunications company that stands to benefit enormously from the Trump victory, because one of the Trump promises is to get rid of net neutrality, which is to have net neutrality rules in place restricts the ability of telecommunications conglomerates like Comcast from extorting money from everyone who wants to use the internet to communicate. So for them, November 5th was a huge victory. And this is despite the fact that MSNBC is supposedly the progressive 24-hour news channel, the Democratic news channel. They are first and foremost the Comcast news channel.
Wait a minute. And before that, they were the General Electric news channel that put their number one show off the air because he was calling, Phil Donahue, for us not to invade Iraq. And where they had military contracts. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they're the $500,000 that Al Sharpton got for Get Out the Vote efforts is pretty small change in the media world. That is a tiny fraction of the amount of money that Comcast will get in excess profits from the fact that they have a Republican telecommunications person is going to be heading the FCC. Mm-hmm. That is I feel like that is the corruption that needs the the real focus, the sustained attention, because that is the kind of corruption that shapes our communication system, that determines what kind of information people have, and I think that information really determines what people make choices about the candidates based on the reality that they understand. And when you're talking about the reality of a country of 350 million people, you don't look out your front door and see what's going on with 350 million people. You need that reality to be conveyed to you by media, and if the media that we have are, on the one hand, places that are bought by platforms that are bought by billionaires for an explicitly ideological agenda, and on the other hand, corporate centrist media that are playing the both sides game, where like the issues supposedly were the flood of immigrants invading our country. And when you look at the actual numbers, from the Trump era to the Biden era, the percentage of undocumented immigrants in this country went up by 0.1%.
Mm-hmm.
That is the immigration crisis, the border crisis, that was the drumbeat of coverage, not just in Fox, and the.
It was everywhere, Jim. It was everywhere. I mean, and it's the oligarchs are running the place, and the oligarchs are Republican, they're Democrat, they're Libertarian, they're everything.
Yeah, the crime, crime went down. Crime is at historically low levels, and went down during the Biden administration. Mm-hmm. You would never believe that from if you're paying a casual attention to the news. You would think we were in some kind of crime wave that was destroying Jim, the country.
Jim, I mean, because you're the one. I mean, your entity has reported that, and thankfully, I mean, with the actual number and the data. I mean, the data. Deborah Douglas. The problem is, I can't get the media. I can't get the so-called left wing, or certainly not the right wing, or people who are in the super righteous middle. It's all a joke. No, nobody's telling me the truth. Yeah. Nobody wants to. Nobody's doing that. No one says that 38,000 Ukrainians were brought to Chicago.
Right.
I mean, they went over and got them and brought them over here. Deborah, Jim. I mean, when the war started, no one talks about the fact that we provoked Ukraine. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. Not only did we overthrow their government, but we provoked them. No one, you can, and please, for heaven's sake, if you want to talk about peace, no, you can't get on TV, and Facebook is going to block you. I mean, oh my God!
Well, Santita, the people that control the media control your mind. Gil Scott-Heron talked about that on The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Let's be honest. The history of Adolf Hitler, when he first waged his war against the Jews, he set up the paparazzi, and he put it all out in the news about his thoughts about Jewish people. I just want to put that out there. And what happened in Rwanda back in 1994, it was all on the airwaves about we have to exterminate the cockroaches, right? After further study, we found that some German archaeologists, they were the ones, the culprits, that actually divided the tribes in Rwanda for no reason at all, to make it seem like the Tutsi and the Hutu people were different people and the Tuareg people were different people. They were all the same people all the time. But see, those control the airways, control your mind. That's what it's all about. So now you got billionaires, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. They trumped America right now. And so now they're going to be in play for 4 years. They're controlling Twitter. And then guys like me, see, I'm a straight up guy, like I said before. I can care less if you're a billionaire or not. I'm a grown man. You see, I was born this way, and that's just the way I talk. It's not about being tough or anything. It's just that I am who I am. I'm not going to compromise who I am just because you got this money. So everybody should be transparent, going back to transparency when it comes down to taking money, because it's okay to get money because everybody has to pay their bills. We're not knocking that, but have a little integrity about it.
Well, how would you handle it on your show? How would you handle that?
Well, the thing about it, I'll be straight up with you. There was a billionaire here in Illinois. I was hosting my show at WCPT. Actually, this is why I was taking off
Where you and I
WCPT.
used to be.
Yeah, that's right. Believe it or not, I just say this. I'm not going to mention names, right? But I turned down $1,200 from a billionaire through somebody else who wanted me to have a billionaire come on my show for an interview. I'm not going to never, ever take $1,200 from a billionaire. If you're a billionaire, and I learned this, I know I bring up entertainers all the time. When Eddie Murphy played in that role, Dreamgirls, in that movie, a billionaire financed a movie, Eddie Murphy asked for $10 million. He said, I'm not going to take no $1 million. So this is a billionaire. You're going to have to pay me more than $1,200, right? And I would have been honest. I'd have told the people, look here, I've accepted some funds for my show because you have to sponsor the show and all that good stuff, but it would have had to be at least $100,000 or better. That's just well, look, should have been $1 million, but I would take $100,000 for a 1 hour show. Don't get me wrong, but that's how I would have handled it. Just being straight
and you
up.
would have said, and you know,
yeah,
this he's bought this time.
Yes.
And I have some questions for him. Right.
Yeah, I would have done that. And I'm surprised, Santita, even on when the mayoral race, Brandon Johnson, Paul Vallis, when they were in the runoff, right? I was mentioning Paul Vallis on WVN a few times, and I got a call, basically, look here, man, why you mention that guy's name? But keep in mind, they ran 10 Paul Vallis commercials on the show before I mentioned his name. So I responded by saying, you just ran commercials of the man. You tell me I can't mention his name. Give me a break, you know? So I'm bringing this up.
I'm sorry, go on, because the mother.
I'm just bringing this up through my experiences dealing with the media, pay, and all this kind of stuff. The reality, you never want to be exposed as a person that had, no one's perfect, but I would never want to be exposed as a person with no integrity and no ethics when it comes down. Just be straight up. Like I say, I'm the guy that's going to tell you, yeah, they just paid me $200,000 to promote him on my show. Period. He's coming up next. So if you have any questions, talk to him. But if you want to talk to me about why I took the money, I'll explain that to you as well. I don't have to do that, but I will. I have no problem with that because it makes you look a little shady or shallow sometimes when you're not being transparent. It's like delaying a lie. In other words, you want to delay. You want to tell the truth, but you delay telling the truth for a while. Then if you wait too long, it appears to be a little shady. It may not even be underhanded, but it has that appearance.
Deborah, what do you tell your students?
On the news media side of things, we already have established rules and practices for properly labeling what it is whatever kind of story you're trying to tell. So if it's sponsored content, then it's labeled sponsored content. If it's advertising, then it's labeled advertising. So we already have established practices for these sorts of things. So this is not a new thing. And so I think I've heard all of us agree on the need for transparency and disclosure on how certain things are handled. But also we're talking about two things: the difference between somebody who's in entertainment, a commentator, a talking head, a voice, versus someone who may be a practicing journalist, someone who is doing the spade work, doing the research, doing the reporting. And Al Sharpton is a commentator. He's an activist. He's a lot of things, a lot of wonderful things, but a journalist, he is not. So there are certain expectations that you would expect from different people depending on how they're showing up. The thing is that on these large platforms, especially the large broadcast and cable platforms, it's just also muddled. The average everyday person doesn't know the difference. And that's something that journalism is going to have to contend with. I also wanted to refer back to the sort of situational analysis that Jim established when we first started our conversation.
About 5.
Talked about the problematic platforming that's come from the Musk camp. X is actually dying, everybody. So just to be clear about that, people are jumping like roaches, showing sunlight every day. But also, we're faced with misinformation and disinformation from Russian bots. Yes, that sounds like science fiction, but it's not. I just came from Iceland, where I was at the Reykjavik Global Forum talking to people who work on this stuff every day, and we're just surrounded. We're washed in misinformation and disinformation that's muddling our conversations on every platform that we can think of. So we got the right-wing media. And in all the confusion they're sowing, we got a guy who just bought himself a country. And then we got all this other stuff that is just only going to grow exponentially because it literally takes nuclear power plants to pump out this level of misinformation and disinformation. I'm going to end with, though, by saying that things are not normal. We need the Al Sharptons of the world. We need the Roland Martins of the world. And to quote James Baldwin, I have never seen myself as a spokesman. I am a witness. In the church in which I was raised, you were supposed to bear witness to the truth. Now, later on, you wonder what in the world the truth is, but you do know what a lie is.
No question. And I will say this, as we are dealing with Russian bots, we're dealing with bots from many other countries. Russia's not the only one. We have got to stop this Russia phobia that we got. This, not you. I'm just saying, just generally speaking, you have a lot of countries that have an interest in bending American opinion in their direction.
Yes.
Now, we talk about Russia, but we don't mention other people.
Yes.
And that to me is highly problematic, deeply problematic.
I'm talking about.
Because that is a lie.
Yeah.
Because there's some other people, because they're doing commentary and all kinds of things that Russia's not even doing. We don't even have our RT on cable anymore. But you have people who have worked for different international organizations that have an international bent, and they don't disclose that. See, that to me, Deborah, Jim, Tio, it's the transparency. I mean, look, if you just tell me what your background is, I can live with it. Just tell me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Just tell me. I don't mind you coming from wherever you come from. Just Jim.
Yeah. Personally, I am less worried about Russian bots than I am about American humans. I think that American human billionaires have far more direct influence over our elections than any foreigners do, and they are openly using that power to sway to capture our government.
Absolutely. And Arlene, what you say, as usual, on both sides of the issues. No, but I try to look at them. I try to look at issues globally. Because see, there's your side, there is someone else's side, and there is the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm from a large family, Arlene. My parents didn't really put their thumbs on the scales with us. And if someone got in trouble in school, when they showed up at school on those rare times that they did, because our parents did not play and you did not want to get into trouble, the first thing my parents would do, they would not say, "Oh, no, not my baby." Remember that song, Tio? Deborah doesn't remember that. You did. Deborah's too young, but that's all right. "Oh, no, not my baby." No, my parents would say, no, what did you do? And that's my thing. So you can call it both sidism if you want to. I try to do three sides. That side, the truth. I just want to know the truth. That's all.
That is, that is the lodestar. And my objection to the both sides paradigm is when media feel it is their ethical obligation to pretend that they don't know that the truth is the truth. They think it's their ethical obligation to act like someone who's lying is just giving a reasonable, that's their opinion, and not letting the audience know that they know that what they're saying is not true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have your first obligation as a journalist is to the truth and to convey the reality as closely as you can to your audience. I think that's what your audience needs and deserves.
Well, and as this story grows, and if you go on YouTube and if you just go on social media, you're hearing this discussed. That's why I brought this to us today. And I have so much respect for Deborah Douglas and her integrity as a journalist and as a human being. And I would say the same of you, Jim Narakis. And you, Tio Hardiman. I mean,
appreciate you.
Each of you individually and collectively are people for whom I have a lot of respect. So I wanted to know what you think about all of this in this landscape. I happen to know and love Reverend Sharpton. I've known him since I was a little girl. And I have known Roland a long time. In fact, he preceded me. He did morning drive on WVON, and then I did middays. So these are people I've known, people for whom I have a lot of respect. I brought this up because they're being discussed. And I don't like seeing their integrity attacked because I know that there's a whole lot more to all of this than many of us say. But I would caution all of us. I think this is a cautionary tale, Deborah Douglas, Professor Douglas, and Jim Narakis, and Theo Hardiman. Transparency. You let people know. And sometimes you have to kind of hold the information depending upon where you are, what it is. I mean, and that's life. But in something like that, you let people know so that they don't call into question your integrity. Because that's the coin of the realm, everybody. That's all we've got is our integrity. That's it.
That's what we're talking about. Yes.
That's it.
And
That's
then
it.
quickly, Santita, this election may have had a different outcome if the Democrats would have stopped playing tit for tat politics, attacking Donald Trump. We already knew what Donald Trump was all about, his character, but instead of focusing on the policies, the Republicans once again painted a stronger narrative about how the Democrats may have failed, whether they failed or not. Like Jim was talking about, they put this illusion out there that crime was so high, but crime was actually down. But the Democrats never made that point as clear as they could have made it. They never made the point clear for the asylum seekers versus illegal immigrants. So that's where they kind of fell asleep at the wheel, in my opinion. That's coming down to the media once again, pushing the message out there. So that's how Trump was able to trump America, because his message was a little bit more resounding and more strong and clear to people, even though some of it might have been a little cloudy. As far as if once you start looking into it and pulling out the facts, you'll see some information was not legit, but he won the election because he did a better job in the media arena.
And look, and the fact is that, and I will close out here because I'm going to have to, they were always on his side. See, one of the things that we learned from Richard Daley, the mayor, the boss who died in 76, I think it was that you never call your opponent's name. The media kept Donald Trump alive for the past 4 years. They talked about it every single day. If you don't believe it, think of every civil rights leader you know, every peace activist you know. They bury them. They don't mention them in the news. Trump, they inflated him. They blew him up. Even with the prosecutions, they blew him up. So you were going to develop you were going to feel some kind of way about him. And you were going to hear about him every day. He could have been sleeping on his sofa, which he was not doing. But he was mentioned every day. So they were giving him life every day. Don't sleep on that, even if it was negative news. What my father would say, did they spell my name right? That's all you want to know. Okay. If they thought enough of me to mention me, well, okay. So don't ever be fooled by any of this. If they wanted to bury Trump, if the oligarchs wanted to do that, Deborah, they would have. They would never have mentioned his name because that's how they do it.
That's true.
So let's just, everybody, stop. But let's be transparent. Let's do that. And let's let people know where we stand. And then you take your hits. It's okay. Sometimes you might get some plaudits. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But always do that because, as I said, the coin of the realm, all you have is your integrity. And you never want anyone to question it. And these two men in particular, and a lot of these people who were mentioned in the Newsweek article, all of them Black organizations. These people and organizations have done a lot of great work for many, 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 many years. They've stood 10 toes down for all of us. And so that's something to think about, but you got to say it. Got to say it. So everybody, I'm Santita Jackson, and I guess in another day you will hear us talk about the Hunter Biden pardon. Right now we're talking about this. Every day I got whiplash, Deborah Douglas. I never know, Jim Narakis, Theo Hardiman, what's going to happen next? Gee whiz, I can't plan out these shows. It's too much. I love everybody, Arlene and Carol and everybody. Thank you for checking in. You've been with me for about 4 or 5 hours tonight. It's been a lot. It is. But we had to crank some things up, and even with all the hours that we've done, guess what? Got to do another extra one tomorrow. Talk about this one. So there we go. It's all right. I love you all, and may God bless you real good. I'm Santita Jackson, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive.